Can you have your name removed from the Lamb's Book of Life? This is the question that I heard recently as I was on vacation. And this particular church I was in on that Sunday, all the elders were sitting up on the stage and they were taking questions from the audience. And somebody asked this question, and I thought they stumbled a little bit at the answer. Now, I'm not putting any blame on them because, first of all, it's really courageous to take questions from the audience when you have no idea what they're going to ask. And second, this is the kind of thing you need to go back and look at a little bit and refresh your memory before you actually give an answer for it. So what I thought I would do for you, my awesome listeners and viewers on YouTube, is to try to give an answer to this that might help in case you come across this question yourself sometime. So it comes from Revelation chapter 22 and verses 18 and 19. I just want to read these to you and then we'll look at them. It says, "For I testify to everyone who hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to these things, God will add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part from the book of life, from the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book." And so you look at that at first and it says, man, it looks like our names can be removed from the book of life. And of course, we know the book of life is a list of those people who have put their faith in Jesus Christ. So can you have your name removed from that? Because that doesn't seem to square with other places in the Bible. Well, I think one of the first things that we need to do is we need to look at the context. We always need to look at the context when we're trying to understand something in the Bible, especially if it's a little bit difficult. And so one thing before we even get to the context is you might be reading in a Bible version that says tree of life rather than book of life. That's because some of the ancient manuscripts actually have the word tree rather than book. But in the end, really, it means the same thing because the people who have their names written in the book of life access the holy city, the New Jerusalem, and they can have access to the tree of life there. So in the end, we're talking about eternal salvation. Can someone always have their salvation, or is it possible for it to be removed from the Lamb's book of life, to have their names removed? So that's what we're looking at today. So either way, it really comes down to the same thing. But as far as context here, we need to look all around this passage and see what's going on. And if we look at several verses in this chapter, verses 7, 10, 18, and 19, I think we're going to see that this really helps us to understand this, because each time in each of those verses, it talks about the prophecy of this book, not the book of life, but the book we're reading, the book of Revelation. It talks about the prophecy of this book. So when we read this, understand we are talking about the book of Revelation. It's not necessarily extended to the whole Bible, although we don't want to change anything in the whole Bible, obviously. But it's talking specifically about the book of Revelation. They didn't have all the books of the Bible in a nice leather bonded or genuine leather edition. They had all the different scrolls. And so we're talking here about this particular book, the book of Revelation. So what I want to do now is I want to go back and just look at some of these verses that surround this one. We're going to go back and look at Revelation 22, verse 7 at first. This is what it says. "Behold, I'm coming quickly." These are the words of Jesus. "Blessed is he who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book." So keep the words of the prophecy of this book. This is about the book of Revelation. Pay attention to it. Keep the words. When they say keep the words, it means to heed them, to pay attention to them, obey them, do them, okay? Pay attention to what is written here in the book of Revelation. And then we get down to verse 10. It says, "And he said to me," this is the angel, "he said to me, do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand." Again, the prophecy of this book, don't seal it. Go out there and tell it. Now, this is in direct opposition to what happened to Daniel, as he also received revelation of some things that would come in the end times. And he was told, seal it up. Don't tell anybody, because the time is a long way off. But here in John's time, it's getting a lot closer. So he and anyone who looked at it and read it is supposed to just disseminate the information, to go ahead and spread it out to everybody. Now, looking in verse 17, and the Spirit, verse 17, "And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him who hears say, come. And let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely." Now, this is an invitation, and it's setting us up for verses 18 and 19. Come. The Spirit and the bride are saying, come. You can receive the good things. In the book of Revelation, we've heard all about all these terrible things that are going to happen at some point on the earth. People are going to be dying, and one world government, and it's just going to be a terrible, terrible time for people who are still living here. So he says, look, I'm telling you about a way that you can get away from all that. I'm telling you how you can also one day enter the new heaven and the new earth, and it'll be a wonderful place for you. But here's the invitation. Are you coming or not? You can have it. Are you coming? Are you not coming? So that brings us back down to verses 18 and 19, which we need to read again. For I testify to you. I have the invitation. Now I'm testifying to you, to everyone who hears the words of the prophecy of this book of Revelation. If anyone adds to these things, God will add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part from the book of life, from the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. So what is he talking about here? Does it mean that if you add something to the book of Revelation or take something away, that you're going to lose your salvation? Well, I don't think so, and I want to tell you why by pointing out two observations and then looking at one conclusion, just to kind of sum it all up, okay? So the first observation is this. Talking about obeying every part of a book or having your name removed from something seems to be a common idea, or at least a somewhat common idea, of a way to stress the importance of obedience for something. And I want to show you a passage back in Deuteronomy chapter 4. This is all the way back in Moses' time, and Moses is going to be addressing the people before they go into the promised land. He's giving them the second law, rehearsing the whole law to them, which is why it's called Deuteronomy, second law. And he's going to rehearse all this to them. And he says this in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 1 and 2. Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and judgments which I teach you to observe, that you may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers is giving you. You shall not add to the word which I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. So he is saying here, don't take anything away from these commandments that I am giving to you. You might not like them, but deal with it, right? You might not like it, but you need to obey them anyway. Don't try to change things just because you don't like them. Just obey it. Just do it anyway. And when we read the book of Revelation, we see some things that we don't really like. We see a God who avenges sin. We see a God who allows a third of humanity to be slaughtered in a bloodbath all at one time. And that just doesn't fit with the soft idea of God that we have in our modern theology, where God is just a God of love. He just slobbers all over everybody with his love and his great feelings toward us. And we don't see that in the book of Revelation. And people might say, you know, I don't like that, so I'm going to discount this book of Revelation. I'm going to change some things in it. We don't like it. And that's what Moses was saying in Deuteronomy. If you don't like the words of the law, that doesn't mean you can change it. You have to live according to it. So I want to go now to the end of the book of Deuteronomy. This will be in chapter 29 and verses 19 and 20. Deuteronomy 29, 19 and 20. We're going to see now he's finished giving them the law again. And this is what he says. And he is talking about a person who has heard the whole law, who knows the law, but decides he still wants to go back and obey other gods. He wants to live for other gods and leave the real God. This is what he says about that person. And so it may not happen when he hears the words of this curse, that he blesses himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, even though I follow the dictates of my heart, as though the drunkard should be included with the sober. The Lord would not spare him. For then the anger of the Lord and his jealousy would burn against that man, and every curse that is written in this book would settle on him, and the Lord would blot out his name from under heaven. So that is a great warning to a person like that would leave the law that he knows. And I think that's what's going on here in Revelation. As John is getting this revelation, God comes and says, look, understand, you need to obey this book. You need to pay attention to this book, or you will have dire consequences coming to you. So that's the first observation. The second observation is that here in Revelation, it is a warning to those who reject the invitation. This is not to believers. It is to those who listen to what Revelation says and say, no, thank you, I don't want it. So it's for unbelievers, not for believers. Remember, verses 18 and 19 that we looked at are actually a response to the invitation that was given in verse 17. In verse 17, the Spirit and the bride say, come to me. Verses 18 and 19, if you don't come to me, you are going to have to pay the consequences. The invitation goes out to people who have not already arrived. You might get an invitation to go to a banquet. Well, you're not going to get an invitation when you're already sitting there in the banquet hall. You get it beforehand and you look at the invitation. You say, well, I don't know. Do I want to go or not? That's what's going on here in Revelation. In verse 17, the Spirit and the bride say, come to me, come to the new city, come and believe. And you can look at it and you can say, okay, I'll take it. I'll go. And then you get all the blessings that are written there, especially toward the end of the book of Revelation. But if you say, no thanks, I don't like the God that the book of Revelation portrays, I'm not gonna listen to it, I'm not gonna accept it, then you're sealing your own fate. Then you are accepting the bad things that are talked about in the book of Revelation. Some people will look at this and they want to change it, right? This is what it's talking about. They'll say, look, okay, I don't like what it's talking about here in Revelation. I don't like the picture of God that it portrays. So maybe I'll soften it up a little bit. Maybe I'll just say that it's really all allegorical. It's about some general battle between good and evil. And you're trying to soften the idea about a God being a God of vengeance and a God of holiness. You're trying to soften it up a little bit. That's changing it. You might say, well, surely God didn't mean this. No way, not a God of love. Or maybe you'd say, well, it's all made up anyway. I mean, this crazy stuff that happens, we don't understand it. So John, or someone writing under the pseudonym of John, came up with all this stuff. In other words, I don't like it, so I'm going to change it. What this passage is telling us is if you are like that, if you refuse to accept this and you say, well, no, it couldn't be, we can't be taking it as actually a prophecy or anything like that, you are accepting for yourself, for your name not to be in the book of life. By the way, that brings up something else I need to mention. We think about it this way, and we ask the question this way, can your name be removed from the book of life? Well, if you notice carefully, this does not say that anyone's name is removed from the Lamb's book of life. It does not say that. What it says, and let me actually get it back up here for you, Revelation 22, because I want you to see this. In verse 19, if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part from the book of life. It doesn't say that God will remove his name from the book of life. It says that he will take away his part. That word part means allotment. It's like that banquet invitation. If someone sends you an invitation for a banquet, there is an allotment for you. If you accept the invitation, you can go to the banquet, but you're not there yet, right? And if you reject it, you say, well, I don't believe this was a good invitation, or I don't like you, so I'm not going to your banquet, whatever it is. And you say, no, that allotment is taken away. You've never had it, but the allotment is taken away from you and then given to somebody else. So this whole passage here is not about somebody losing their place in heaven. It's about somebody never getting their place in heaven. The offer is out there. The offer stands. Come, believe, accept it. But some people refuse to accept it, and so they don't ever receive it. So in summary, we have observed two things. We observed that calling down curses in a way for not obeying the prophecies and commands in a book is a way of stressing how important it is to obey. The second observation is that this is written to unbelievers who have not yet accepted it. People who accept it have no reason to change what is written in the book. That's why he says, if you're going to try to take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, someone who accepts it isn't going to do that. But someone who doesn't want to accept it is liable to try to change it, and they will lose their place in the book of life, the place that should be set aside for them, but they're not ever going to have their name written there. So here's the conclusion. The conclusion is this. This passage, Revelation 22, 18, and 19, is a warning. If you accept God's offer of life, you will have life. If you reject God's offer of life, you will experience God's wrath. That's it in a nutshell. What's Revelation 22, 18, 19 about? If you reject God's offer, you will experience God's wrath. So don't reject his offer of life eternal. God bless you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so we can continue to learn more things about what we believe, why we believe it, and how it affects our life. God bless you. I'll see you next time.